All right. So next up, let's talk about the dissension conversation. So what is dissension? This is where authenticity emerges, where we can speak from our hearts. This is really where the trust comes into play as well. So after you've gone through and invested a lot of time in appreciation, considering possibility, coming up with specific invitations, what comes next is, the opportunity to dissent. And that's important because, honesty and truth comes out, to be able to rely on the trust of the group, of the fellowship. One must be able to speak, plainly. So within our matrix, when we are looking at, a course of action, for instance, I want to put out a presentation that helps people understand that a quadrillion-dollar GDP is possible. So the value. So the value might be inclusiveness. Will everybody have access to it? So for me, if the answer is yes, it's a thumbs up. If this is safe enough to try, meaning, I think people might have access to it. This is a 2, it ranks a 2 on the matrix. And, if something doesn't feel right, you offer a gift. It's not thumbs down, you offer a gift. And that rates a 1. And the gift I have to offer is that, especially in this dissension conversation, is that, there are corporate interests that don't want this information to go out. So it's very possible that this information is not going to be seen by a lot of people, especially if it goes online. So if I wanted to rate that optional 1, that's what comes up for me. So so that's a little bit more about the matrix process, but dissent is really about being aware of how you're feeling. So, during the invitation, you're thinking about things that are better, different, more new. In the dissension conversation, you're feeling your way through it. Does this feel better? Does this feel like this could be more, that it could be different, that it could be new? So that comes up to the question, what is collaboration? So I said earlier that a quadrillion-dollar GDP in a competitive environment is impossible. So I'm not here to debate. I'm not here to contest that. If somebody is coming in with the intention to compete and to be better than somebody else, this is impossible. So that there's no fight there. There's no competition there. But in a collaborative environment where people have the commitment to listen, have the commitment to align values, to find common ground, it's very possible to change the very makeup of the financial system. So not only can it be profitable and rewarding, we can also kind of start to serve as the conscience, of the world, of the finance system, solving, some of the greater problems for better living conditions, and that starts with the commitment to collaborate and really looking at, the competitive urges that come up. So another project that I am involved with is with the Collaborative Innovation Institute. So I already talked about Marta Reese, who is part of my core fellowship. Trey, Ashley Guerin is also part of this team. And we speak, every week, sometimes twice a month with the founders of the Collaborative Innovation Institute, which include Marta, Bob Johnston, and Bart Bartholomew. And we have some, wonderful conversations around, how important facilitation is. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in the takeaway. But the 2 men that we communicate with have a vast richness of experience in business, in corporate culture, in military, and in strategy. So it's quite an honor to be in collaboration with them. So I talked about the people, talked about the history a little bit. Marta and Bob Johnston go back a couple of years when they were with the Strategy Innovation Group, and now the Collaborative Innovation Group. So, richness, a great richness of wisdom that comes out. So the takeaways that we have been discussing is that it's so difficult It's so difficult to have a collaborative environment in an environment of competition. Bart often says, he loves to get into these really meaningful discussions around science, especially around science and spirituality. And the the reaction is that we get looked at like we have nine heads, but this is the way forward. This is the way to really find the common ground to come up with workable solutions. We're working on what we call the unification of facilitation. So to me, what that means is that we don't need another method for facilitation. We don't need all a lot more knowledge. We need more practice. So we're looking to have conversations with people who are already considered the top of their game, the best facilitators in the world, and say, look, let's get away from this having to prove our worth and prove our value. Let's get honest. Let's get real. Let's have maybe let's have a dissension conversation. So that's something that comes up. So it's the unification of facilitation. In competitive circles, facilitation is seen as a step down from leadership. That was a surprise to me. So in these conversations, it has been identified that facilitation is considered soft stuff, nothing really to be considered seriously. But I would say that facilitation is the future of leadership, facile, to make easy. So how do we make it easier, to solve some of these problems? And that means getting honest, really having someone who understands how to get underneath the surface and start talking about emotions. And I think that's where the future, really is being able to procure emotional intelligence. So, yeah, let me take a look at my notes here. Yeah. So the world-class facilitator, that's something that we talk about as well too. So to become a world-class facilitator, is that something that, a marketing company, gives to you, or is that something by really living with, with the values, living with, and demonstrating on a, on a moment-to-moment basis, how to get underneath the surface? Because to me, the truly world-class facilitator are the people you've never heard of, are the people who, it does not benefit the current leadership paradigm or the current need to control for someone to come in and be able to help everyone express all sides of the story. It's a very polarized environment right now. So, the world-class facilitator in my mind is the one that comes in and is able to identify the values that is underneath the polarity and start to have a real conversation and have that dissension conversation. What does it feel safe to do this yet? Why not? How do we make it feel more safe? How do we make it more safe? So the value is emotional awareness. So again, with all of the values that I had mentioned in the beginning of this presentation, you don't have to agree with it. I'm not asking, anybody to agree with it. I'm asking you to entertain it for a while so that we can have, a sober conversation, a real conversation. So what is it going to take to value collaboration as much as competition? And maybe we can come to the point where we see that toxic competitiveness, is really, kind of like a denying of our feelings, a denying of our emotions, where collaboration is an embracing of it. And, we can find ways to make things work for everybody and solve some of these major world problems that could be solved just by, collaborating. So deeper collaboration. So new approaches for dissension. So dissension is not an argument. Dissension is not a conflict. Dissension might be just about questioning why you're feeling a certain charge, why you're feeling a certain way. With regard to a certain topic or with regard to a certain initiative. So the new approach is to be able to be with those feelings, be with the reason, find the reason why you're feeling a charge or you're feeling a trigger. One tool that we've been working with that has been really helpful is the ability to separate, your data what you've observed, what can be recorded, what is fact, and facts can be manipulated as well too, but what is observable, in the situation? What is the story you're telling yourself? Meaning, based on your prejudices and based on your background and based on your experience, what is the story you're telling yourself about someone or some initiative or some activity? And then getting to the emotion of it, getting to the feeling. Because once you get to the feeling of it, then you can start to take that apart. It's like, okay, well, what do I need to feel a little better about this? And in what ways are my habits making me feel a little worse about this? So just the ability to be able to separate fact from story, from emotion, becomes very, very powerful in the dissension process. And it allows us to take personal responsibility so that if there is a way forward, we can all take responsibility in our part in that. And that's going to be the next conversation that I'll cover tomorrow, which will be the responsibility conversation.